Welcome to Air Emergencies Simply Explained. In today's video, we will be looking into the in-flight emergency of Northwest Airlines Flight 85. October 9th, 2002. Northwest Airlines Flight 85 cruises over the Bering Sea as it flies from Detroit, Michigan to Tokyo, Japan. The aircraft, the first Boeing 747-400 ever made, is carrying 386 passengers and 18 crew members. The main crew consists of Senior Captain John Hansen and First Officer David Smith, while the relief crew consists of Captain Frank Geib and First Officer Mike Fagan. Captain Geib and First Officer Fagan are in the cockpit, while Captain Hansen and First Officer Smith rest in the crew bunk. As Flight 85 cruises at 35,000 feet, the plane suddenly enters a 30 to 40 degree left bank. Captain Geib quickly disengages the autopilot and manages to get the aircraft straight and level. The pilots suspect that the aircraft had suffered from a rudder hardover. This is confirmed by the flight computer. The Boeing 747 is equipped with an upper and lower rudder that works in unison. The lower rudder has deflected 17 degrees to the left and is stuck in that position. First Officer Fagan begins looking for a solution in the quick reference handbook, but he cannot find any. The pilots decide to make an emergency landing in Anchorage, Alaska, 2 hours behind them. The main crew are informed of the situation. Because the aircraft is out of air traffic control's radio range, the pilots ask another Northwest flight flying between them and Anchorage to inform Anchorage of their situation. Captain Geib initiates a right turn towards Anchorage. With the rudder stuck to the left, full aileron deflection to the right is required to make the aircraft turn. This causes the aircraft to slip. The relief pilots carefully hand over controls to the main pilots. Any mishandling during the control transfer could lead to a spin. Fortunately, the pilots are able to transfer controls with no problem. Captain Geib informs the flight attendants to prepare for an emergency landing. The passengers are also notified of the situation. The pilots contact Captain John Doherty at the airline's Systems Operations Center in Minnesota using high-frequency radio. But despite having more Boeing 747-400 experience, Captain Doherty is unable to provide much help. Flight 85 eventually makes contact with Anchorage. Controllers inform the pilots that they are aware of the emergency. The pilots decide to configure their aircraft early to see how the aircraft will react to the landing configuration. Fortunately, the aircraft is able to transition to landing configuration with no problems. However, as the aircraft slows down, the more left yaw the stuck rudder produces, making the aircraft even more difficult to control. Captain Doherty suggests that the pilots add 20 knots to their approach speed for better control. The pilots also increased power on engines 1 and 2 and reduced power on engines 3 and 4 to help compensate for the aircraft's left yaw. Flight 85 reaches Anchorage International Airport. The aircraft makes a hard landing. After touching down, Captain Hansen attempts to use the nosewheel tiller to keep the aircraft straight on the runway. Hours after the emergency began, Flight 85 stopped safely on a runway at Anchorage International Airport. The National Transportation Safety Board discovered a crack in the lower rudder's power control module. The crack was not possible to visually inspect. The lower rudder control module's cast metal housing had broken. This caused the lower rudder to violently turn to the left. The NTSB was unable to find the root cause of the failure. Because the aircraft involved was the Boeing 747-400 prototype, it was possible that the rigorous testing it endured caused the aircraft to suffer from more stress than usual. The power control module was eventually redesigned, following another similar incident 1 year later. In 2003, the pilots of Flight 85 were awarded the Airline Pilots Association Superior Airmanship Award. The aircraft November 661 Uniform Sierra was repaired and returned to service. The 747 was acquired by Delta Airlines when Delta bought Northwest Airlines in 2008. November 661 Uniform Sierra was retired in September 2015. The aircraft is currently on display at the Delta Flight Museum. That is it for today's video. I hope you learned something new. Please subscribe and click the notification bell for more Simply Explained air emergency videos.